Can the Mountaineers end their 2022 college football season on a high note and do something they have yet to do since entering the Big 12 Conference? Can they defeat Oklahoma and Oklahoma State in the same season? That's what they're playing for. We'll pull up a chair, sit back, relax, and let Mountaineer Paul and I serve you up a double shot of top shelf college football content. What is up, college sports fans, fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? This is Coos, and welcome in to another edition of Coos' Corner. On tap in this show, we're going to look ahead to the West Virginia Oklahoma State game that's going to take place this Saturday, November the 26th. We'll kick off at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Central Time, and we'll air on ESPN2, and the game is going to be played at Boone T. Pickens Stadium in Stillwater, Oklahoma, the home of the Oklahoma State Cowboys. So, let's get into it, Paul. You first, man. What are your initial thoughts on this game?
My initial thoughts on this game, when I started looking at the numbers, I was shocked that the Oklahoma State defense is ranked 118th in the nation. Just that they've fallen so far in 1 year. And, you know, they lost a lot of good players on that defense, but I don't think anything compares to the loss of Jim Knowles.
Yeah.
And he's turned it up at Ohio State this year and have got them playing high-level defense. You know, I'd be surprised if he's not looked at for some head coaching opportunities. He's done it multiple places now. Yeah, his defenses were so tough. And it's really obvious, you know, I looked at some tape. They just don't play the same style they did. They don't have some of the same players as well. A lot of the really good defensive linemen have moved on, and they've got guys that are still good Big 12 caliber starters, but not anything like the mountains they had there last year and the year before. They're just replacing a lot. You know, they've still got some good players on the defensive side of the ball. The offensive side of the ball, though, has had to carry them up until now during the season, and it's just been an inconsistent year for them. You know, they usually win right around 9 or 10 games. They're going to have to win out to do that. So,
right. And one thing interesting, I'm glad you brought up the Jim Knowles thing, because I think that's a huge factor this season. Which I had predicted Oklahoma State to take somewhat of a step back this year because of losing so many guys. But I did not expect them to go from I think they were top 5 defense in the country last year, if I'm not mistaken, all the way down to a 118th. I think's what you said. So,
yeah,
you're basically going from one end of the spectrum to the other. That's a huge drop off. I didn't see that coming. But what I find intriguing about Oklahoma State, and this is one reason I have a lot of respect for Mike Gundy. The guy takes however his team is constructed. He looks at his talent and he says, okay, here's what we need to do to win football games. And he will do that. Like last year, they won with defense and running the football. They handed the ball to Jalen Warren as many times as they possibly could and let their defense win games. They ate up clock, played a slow, methodical running style, and let their defense stop the other team, and they win. Well, this year, their defense isn't very good, so they don't have Jalen Warren anymore. So they said, okay, now we've got to go out and outscore people. So they let Spencer Sanders loose, and I think he's 16th in the nation in passing offense or something. So he goes out and puts up some yards, and he's having one of his best seasons, if not best season he's had since he's been there, other than the injuries he's been dealing with, obviously. But it's just I have a lot of respect for how Mike Gundy is able to figure out how to win games based on what talent he has, and that's why the guy wins 8-9 games a year.
Yeah, Spencer Sanders, just to your point there, 2,600 passing yards, 508 rushing yards. You know, so to your point, just true dual threat. And they've got, I was looking at their running back room. They've got 4 guys that are right around the same, that 550, 500-yard mark. I mean, they just truly do it by committee this year, led by Dominic Richardson.
Right.
But, yeah, Gundy, instead of just leaning on one guy like he did last year with Jalen Warren, has certainly just decided their entire room. And they've got guys that can pound it. They've got guys that are shiftier, similar to like maybe a Justin Johnson for us.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've got their version of C.J. Donaldson, man. And I'm a big fan of that kid, number 0.
Mm-hmm.
And he is a battering ram for them. He actually is a converted tight end. I thought that was so interesting that they had the same scenario this year.
That is neat. That's interesting. And then, oh, by the way, you've got Brennan Presley out there at wide receiver, 56 catches, 662 yards, and 2 scores. So, he can beat you. He's a little guy, but he can make big plays for you. Spencer Sanders likes to get him the ball. So, they've got weapons on the offensive side, but it's all hinges around Spencer Sanders. And just to let everybody know what Spencer Sanders is, Paul mentioned his yardage a minute ago. He's 212 of 368 passing, 2,642 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Now he will throw an interception. 9 interceptions is not a great number. If you put pressure on him and force him to make mistakes, he will make mistakes. Yeah, I think that's a key to West Virginia. I think West Virginia needs to stop. They need to get some pressure on Spencer Sanders. Whether they need to blitz a little more than usual, whatever they need to do, they've got to figure out a way to get some pressure on Spencer Sanders and try to force him to make some turnovers. What do you think?
Yeah, and their offensive line's under fire. They gave up 6 sacks against Oklahoma in the Bedlam game. Preston Wilson gave up his first sack in 2 years during that game. And in an interview that I read, he said tears were coming down his face over that. And so they've kind of had a call to arms amongst the offensive line room there at Oklahoma State. Mm-hmm. Obviously, their standards are high all the way across the board throughout that entire program. So 6 sacks is a lot. To lose Bedlam in a year that Oklahoma's down probably really stung for them. But Wilson, definitely the leader of that group and going to be a high draft pick as well. 6'5", 295 pounds at the center spot, man. That's perfect. I love that. I love that size of the center spot.
Yeah, he's a good player. Only 1 sack in 2 years. That's pretty impressive. I don't care who you are. When you look at this game, what do you think West Virginia needs to do offensively to win this football game?
Well, I think it's just going to have to outscore them. I don't have any notion that we're going to hold Oklahoma State down and win some kind of defensive battle, nor do I have any notion that we're going to, score up and down the field on them. But I do think we can outscore them in a game that may, we get up into the 30s. That's when I start worrying. But anything under, let's say 31. I think is the game West Virginia can win. With Garrett Greene at quarterback, it's just we don't know what this offense looks like at full go yet. We have scored in the 40s a couple of times this year, but not with Garrett Greene. So I'm just curious to see what that can look like. And still yet, are we going to have another first half like we have so many times this year where the offense looks good, we come out at half, and literally, I cannot think of at least 2 games this year where we've laid, if not a goose egg, 3 to 6 points up in the second half in these games. Mm-hmm. Makes no sense.
I agree. I'm not sure what's up with that either. Maybe it's lack of adjustments at halftime, maybe.
It's got to be out coaching.
Yeah, I think that's the case.
You're getting out coached.
Yep, has to be.
They're making adjustments that you're not adjusting to the adjustment.
Yep.
Got to
be that.
They found answers. Yeah, they got answers for your stuff, and then you don't have answers for their answers.
And I think there's been a couple games this year, the last game being the perfect example, where West Virginia I think they got away from the running game a little bit too early.
Yeah.
They got behind, and I think they panicked a little bit, and they were running the ball. West Virginia was running the ball really successfully against Kansas State. Matter of fact, they ran the ball as well, if not better, than any team that Kansas State's played this year.
Yeah,
but they got behind and started. I think they started panicking a little bit because their defense hadn't been able to stop them. So they started trying to, we're going to have to outscore them. Well, maybe not. I just think they should have ran the ball maybe a little bit more in the second half, at least early on in the second half.
I agree.
Just a thought, because Justin Johnston and Jalen Anderson were both having a good game running the football.
I think the biggest reason is because of the injury or the health of the running back room. Mm-hmm. We just haven't, the last few games, we haven't been able to lean on that room like I think at least we want. You and I, we'd love to see the running game used more. Right. And Tony's got the elbow. Justin's obviously still a newer player. it's been rough, man. Unfortunately CJ went out, and our running back room, man, it could have been so much better this year. But that's okay, man. I think we've got the horses still in that room that can put together a performance. I would like to see that happen this week.
Absolutely. And I think that'll be key. I asked you what you thought, and I think, Sue, I think West Virginia's – I mean, it's been I've said this, I think, in every preview show I've done. When West Virginia runs the football on offensively, they have a chance to win the game. It's been the case in every
Yeah,
game this year. We can't be a one-dimensional team, especially now that Garrett Greene's our quarterback. I mean, yes, he can throw the ball. He made some great throws last week, but he's not going to beat you with his arm alone. He's got to rely on doing some damage with his feet as well. So West Virginia has got to be able to run the football to have any chance of winning this game, in my opinion.
yeah,
So we've got to establish a run. We've got hopefully Garrett can make some plays with his feet, beat them. Make some deep throws down the field. Hopefully, like we did last week with Sam James. Caden Prather's going to be back this week, so that should help. I know he was out last week with an injury, so having him back is only a positive for us. And I got to think that Bryce Ford Weed and Sam James, these guys who probably are not coming back next year, are going to want to go out on a high note, and they're probably going to. I feel like they'll play well this week, and I feel like we'll see some good catches from them. And I really think we can put up some points on this weak Oklahoma State defense. The problem is, can we stop them? That's what scares me the most. And a lot of it could hinge on Spencer Sanders' health. He's been banged up a lot. I'm not sure how healthy he's going to be. So I'll be anxious to see how he plays. But real quick, I want to touch on this. I'm just going to kind of compare stats here real quick of both these teams. All right, when you compare the stats here, obviously West Virginia's 4-7 on the season, Oklahoma State 7-4, but they are reeling a little bit. They've not played as well the last couple of weeks, and a lot of that, like I said, is due to Spencer Sanders being banged up. But when you look at the stats, points per game, West Virginia's scoring about 31.5 a game. Oklahoma State's putting up about 32.9. Points allowed, West Virginia's giving up 34.2. Oklahoma State's giving up 29.8. Total yards, West Virginia's at 405.5. Oklahoma State's at 420.7. Yards passing, West Virginia 241.2. Oklahoma State 293.4. Yards rushing, West Virginia 164.4. Oklahoma State 127.4. Yards allowed, West Virginia's giving up 417.2 a game. Oklahoma State giving up 451.2 yards a game. Passing yards allowed, West Virginia 270.4, Oklahoma State 287. Rushing yards allowed, West Virginia 146.8, Oklahoma State 164.2. So you look at them numbers, Paul. I mean, if West Virginia can't run the ball on Oklahoma State, I mean, we have problems because they should be able to run the ball.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Team. We should get 200 yards against this team, in my opinion.
There's no doubt. And we should be able to control the clock. This is a game where we're going to need to. Oklahoma State second in passing offense, ninth in rushing, and last in efficiency. So that tells me they don't hold on to the ball very much.
Yeah.
That's either a quick score or nothing for them. So in that same mindset, West Virginia makes on them. A team that's last in efficiency, if you hold the ball against a team it's really bad in their efficiency, that's even better. I know I've said that in probably most of the pregame shows for West Virginia this year, but we have so many deficiencies compared to people that we play. Ball control is like the number one or number two thing we need to win every game.
Yeah. Well, it came true in the Oklahoma win because you said that, and I think we held the ball. I think we had a 7 or 8 minute advantage, if not more, in time of possession. And we
very crucial.
And we end up winning by 3 points. So, yeah, we've got to steal possessions. And when I say steal possessions, I mean prevent them from possessing the football as much as possible. And also, which talk about stealing possessions, West Virginia's defense has got to start doing a better job of creating some turnovers. And like I said earlier, maybe we can get some pressure on Spencer Sanders and cause him to make some mistakes. But when we do, our defensive secondary's got to do a better job of catching the football. I mean, Malachi Ruffin did have the one pick last week. He could have had 2 more in that game. So they've got to take advantage of these opportunities to intercept passes, to recover fumbles, and do these things because when you struggle to stop people like West Virginia has all year, the only way you offset it is by taking possessions away, and West Virginia's defense has not done that either. So they've got to get some possessions, extra possessions.
for Oklahoma State to be 7-4 and have those kind of defensive numbers, I'll just venture to say if we looked at their time of possession, won it in almost every game that they've won, especially. There's no other way they make it 7-4 with the way that defense is playing. It's playing worse than ours has.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a huge factor. Has to be.
It's another thing that angers me to look at their defensive numbers and see that they're 7-4, and yet we have just a slightly better, and we have the exact opposite record, 4-7.
Oklahoma State's average time of possession is 27 minutes and 58 seconds. So to compare, West Virginia's time of possession is 31 minutes and 34 seconds a game. So that, to your point, Paul, West Virginia possesses the ball for about 3.5 to 4 minutes longer every game than Oklahoma State. They're going to have to do that again in this game, in my opinion, to have a chance to win. So I agree with you on that. Now, let's talk a minute about Oklahoma State's defense. I know they've given up some yards, but they do have some good players over there. So I want you to touch on some of those guys for me.
Yeah. When I did the research, I really jotted down 4 players on the totality of the defense at different levels that I thought were good. They've got Jason Taylor II, who is 4th in the nation in interceptions. He's got 5, which probably might double up the West Virginia secondary this year alone. Yeah. Mason Cobb, 85 tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss and a pick. Sion and Tyler, the defensive linemen, have 8.5 and 7 tackles for loss apiece, and 4 sacks between them. So those guys really get after the passer from the defensive line spot. But yeah, Cobb and Taylor are two players that start on any defense probably in the country. They're both really good players, like plus what you would consider. You hear Neal Brown say he's a plus player. These guys are both plus players. They're good players.
And then don't forget they've got Colin Oliver on the end too. We all know what he can do. He was a true freshman last year, just wreaking havoc. And I remember watching him in that Bedlam game last year in the 2021 season, and he was just wreaking havoc in the backfield against Caleb Williams in that game. But yeah, when I look at West Virginia, Tony Mathis on the offensive side, Tony Mathis is leading rusher right now, 126 carries, 549 yards, 4.4 yards per carry with 5 touchdowns. But then you got Justin Johnson, 95 carries, 419 yards, also 4.4 yards per carry, which is pretty impressive that you have 2 backs with those kind of yards per carry numbers, and he scored 3 times. And then Jalen Anderson came on in the last game. He's actually averaging 6 yards per carry on there. Now, he's only carried the ball 20 times, but he's averaging 6 yards per carry when he does with a long run of 23 yards. But, so Mathis and Johnson and probably even Anderson are going to get some touches in this game. Now, unfortunately, Donaldson, like we mentioned earlier, is out. He was on pace probably to hit 1,000 yards this year, or at least come close. So it's unfortunate that he's not in the lineup. In receiving, our leading receiver on the year as far as yards is Sam James, 726 yards. He's caught 44 passes. And then Bryce Ford Wheaton's caught 60 passes. He leads as far as receptions, and he has 653 yards. And then Prater, which I mentioned, is 50 catches, 487 yards. So all 3 of those guys. Sam James has 6 touchdowns to Bryce Ford Wheaton 7. So and defensively, for those Oklahoma State folks that are listening out there, the guys that you want to watch for defensively for West Virginia, obviously Dante Stills. We all know about Dante Stills. But you've got our leading tackler on the year is Lee Koba at the middle linebacker spot. He's got 79 total tackles, 2 sacks on the year. But the player that's really impressed me the most this year is a young guy named Aubrey Burks. Aubrey Burks is a safety. He has 61 total tackles. 42 of those are solos with a sack. Also has 2 passes defended and an interception. And then really the last 2 weeks, Jasir Cox has really come on good. Jasir Cox is a grad transfer from North Dakota State. He's a linebacker. He's got 57 total tackles, 31 solo tackles. 3 passes defended, and a half a sack. So he's really been just all around the football these last couple of weeks. Had arguably his 2 best games the last 2 games. Last week against Kansas State, he had 13 tackles, I think it was, against his former head coach, by the way, Chris Kleiman, who coached him at North Dakota State, which I thought was a pretty interesting storyline that I did not even consider or had not even thought about going into that game.
Yeah, interesting. He didn't want to play for Coach Kleiman again.
Yeah, it is. I found that interesting too. Real quick, Paul, before we get out of here, I want to give our score predictions. Before we do, the spread on the game is 8.5. Oklahoma State is favored by 8.5.
Yeah.
The over under on at 63. What do you think will be the final score and who wins?
You know, I would love nothing more than for Neal to go out a winner, and the seniors that we have to go out a winner. But I've picked with my heart a lot this year. I truly just feel like Oklahoma State's a better football team than we are, even though they lost to Oklahoma, a team we beat. That's a rivalry game. You can't really judge those games face value, similar to us and Pitt. But I think Oklahoma State wins, and I think they cover. I think that's going to be the case, in my opinion. I think they're just a better football team. So I'll go 40-21. Oklahoma State.
All right.
Yeah. It's going to end ugly.
I'm with you. I do think Oklahoma State wins the game because West Virginia, we all know, has struggled on the road, not only this year, but really since Neal Brown's been here. I think he's got, 5 conference road wins or something like that.
3. Yeah.
Maybe 3. It's not much in 4 years here.
Yeah.
So we just, for whatever reason, this West Virginia team never looks good on the road. And once again, we're going on the road. It's not a good matchup for us, I don't think. I'm not sure. I don't think we're going to be able to stop. Spencer Sanders is going to be a week healthier probably. I look for him to be healthier this week than he was last week against Oklahoma. I think he'll put up some big numbers on us. And I think Oklahoma State wins it. I don't think they score as many as you think they will because I do think we'll keep the ball away from them some. But I think it'll be, I'm going to say 34-24. So I
would love to eat crow on this.
Yeah. All right. Well, Paul, guys, before we get out of here, I want to give Paul a chance to plug himself and let you guys know where you can find him.
Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. If you ever get a chance to get over there, Kuz and I work together on a lot of different things. We also have another show we do together called Who's from the Hills. We talk about West Virginia basketball solely over there, Big 12 basketball. We've got, I think, 5 videos up over there, and the channel's grown pretty fast for the 5 videos we have, so we're proud of that. But yeah, Mountaineer Paul Talks Football and Hoops from the Hills.
Awesome. Thanks for plugging the Hoops from the Hills show, or channel, I should say. And obviously, I ask you guys to please go subscribe to Mountaineer Paul Talks Football and Hoops from the Hills. You can find him on Twitter at Paul Mountaineer. And then you can find me on Twitter at Coos206. It's right there on the screen for those of you who are watching on YouTube. Paul, I really enjoy working with you, man. I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, that being said, guys, I really appreciate you tuning in and supporting our work here at Coos' Corner and Mountaineer Paul Talks Football and Who's from the Hills. And until the next show, Q Country Roads.